have with us Kevin Scott. And Kevin is the Chief Technology Officer and Information Officer for the PGA of America. Did I get that right, Kevin?
It's a mouthful, but you got it.
All right, fantastic. Well, welcome to Kentucky virtually. We're thrilled to have you. As just a little bit of background on Kevin and the reason why in the world I was able to find him during my time serving the PGA of America. Kevin and I seem to always be in a luggage line, a TSA line together, trying to check bags and whatnot, going from event to event. He had to be everywhere all the time, and so we just had several friendly conversations through the years, and that relationship, I'm pleased to say, has continued on. And he's just absolutely brilliant. He's brilliant in the technology space. He's brilliant in seeing around the corner and seeing what's ahead. We're playing the third hole right now, and he's already on the back nine somewhere making birdies. So he's just a guy that I felt like if somehow we could bring him to the rank and file member, to the green grass level, just somebody who could impact our daily lives, he is it. And so I'm thrilled to introduce him to you this morning to discuss artificial intelligence, AI, and what it means for our industry. So Kevin, anything that I left out there about you, would you like to tell us a little bit more about what you do on a day-to-day basis for the PGA of America?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the kind words, Kelly. It was grossly overstated, but thank you anyway. You probably wouldn't know, the PGA of America actually has quite a significant technology team inside of it. That's everything from running PGA.org, it's running the SMS system through the section, it's keeping score at the Ryder Cup and the PGA Championship. It's the system that runs payments and powers the e-commerce sites, PGA.com, PGA Coach, kind of anything that blinks or beeps or buzzes either at the championships or, you know, kind of if you think of PGA as an enterprise or a corporation, there's a lot of things inside of there too. It's cybersecurity and help desk and all these different things. So what we've been trying to do is make sure that, like, we're not a wealthy organization, so we have to make sure that we spend our money wisely. And fortunately, things like this new technology are pretty good accelerant to be able to help us do things in a different way. And we're excited that it's not only just different, but it's actually better. And better in that sense could either look like higher quality or faster or less expensive. We can talk about some of the ways that those might actually translate into individual PGA professionals, and some of the places where you might be able to put these same things to work. But yeah, that's the basic background and scope of what we do here. I say here, I'm sitting in Frisco. Kelly, I think you're talking to yourself at this point.
Trying to stop the allergy, throat clearing, and sniffling over here and hit the mute button, I guess. But yeah, thanks for being with us and coming in a little early there in the Frisco office. You said something there that I think leads right into what we want to do today. PGA of America is not a wealthy organization, nor are any of our small businesses that we as PGA professionals are tasked to run and manage on a day-to-day basis. So that's where I found AI to be helpful. Just the one little tip of the iceberg that I'm using in Chat GPT right now. So is AI just a buzzword, or are you telling us it's here to stay and we better hop on the ride and strap in, buckle up?
It is definitely full of hype. And it is here to stay. I think that the hype is largely born from there's just a lot of people who have access to a microphone that don't really know what they're talking about, and they're just starting to sort of imagine and dream and just like thinking about what the future might be, but it's not necessarily grounded in reality or where we are today. So that just leads to a lot of hyperbolic statements and big words. But there's a lot of truth to the advances in the technologies. So I actually tend to try to stay inside of like 2 years in terms of what I think about and what I'm predicting. I'm fully aware that 30 years from now, we're going to have an entirely different world than what we have today. Probably a lot less than 30 years from now. But even the people who genuinely are the experts in this whole area, they don't have the right answers, and they disagree. One thing we can say for sure, the next generation is going to be in a completely different world than we are today. But this stuff is coming as sure as the internet came.
Cool. Well, so tell us a little bit from your perspective, and this won't just all be interview for those of you on the call and the webinar today. We're going to actually dig in here in a minute and show some examples, but I felt like it was good to introduce the concept at a higher level before we get into that. So don't just let me be the guy asking the questions. We've got a small enough group here. If you want to put your hand up or type something in the chat, please do. I'm going to lean on Connie to help me recognize those. There's a lot going on the screen here, but you know, AI, is it new, Kevin, or is it finally properly labeled? And why is that? How is it different from just typing something in your Google search bar, or is it any different anymore?
Here's what I usually describe it. So your question kind of like, is it new? Or sort of, is it just also people are talking about it? Several of you have responded by text message and pressed the little button that like automatically gave you a suggestion. Your suggested response should be whatever, or you type it into Gmail and you get, it'll predict the next few words that you're going to type. That stuff is similar to what we're calling AI today, but it's been around for a long, long time. So all of that is more technically termed machine learning, and that really has been around for quite a while. What changed basically when ChatGPT came out, so 22 months ago or so, is that all of a sudden, if you can predict, if computers can predict enough words into the future, they can actually start to create real content. And that real content can look like paragraphs, it can look like text, it can look like documents. It can start to predict things that aren't words, like music, and it can create music and audio. It can create images, it can create videos. So this idea of sort of extrapolating something far enough out in the future, that's what we're now calling AI. Turns out if you take, if you can like write a document, you can actually write some thoughtful instructions or steps. And those steps are turning into things that can be actionable, which means you've got the beginning of systems that can start to kind of think on their own. They can think, okay, the first thing, if I have to solve a problem, the first thing I should do is step 1, then step 2, step 3. And those systems are now being connected to other things, which allow them to actually go off and do steps 1, step 2, step 3. So this is where like machine learning and predicting, you know, is this scan actually a tumor, or is this you know, counting people, you know, is the probability that in this image this is a trash can versus this is a person. Those kind of things are sort of been around for a long time as probabilities and predictions. But what's happened is that has gotten so extreme that it's sort of gone like orders of magnitude into being able to write, author, construct, think, reason about new things. And so that's the difference for what we have today, and a lot of the reason why it's gone kind of full-on hype cycle. At the same time, OpenAI did create a consumer product called ChatGPT, and that fueled a lot of the fire as well, just because it's so accessible, it's so easy to use, and it really is something that a lot of people haven't had a chance to experiment with.
Well, you said it yourself. We've got ChatGPT. You led me right into what we're going to kind of take a little deeper dive as promised. This is my cheat sheet over here for those of you who are not on the phone and can see the screen. This is the really basic outline that I made after a conversation with Kevin about what we might do today. And you know, it's just a Word document in its simplest form. How am I going to handle today? What am I What do we want to talk about? What topics might we want to cover? Why do you care about this? If you're on our call today, well, that's because I'm going to dump that real quick, and I'm going to share a little bit different window with everyone in my Chrome tab here. I'm trying to, at least. So now I've got ChatGPT over here, and we are using the paid subscription version here at Greenbrier. I am super basic in what I utilize it for, mainly for marketing, communications, and really member communications, I guess. But as you can see here, right at the top of the screen, this was my usage for the email that was sent to market today's program. I created the outline, and then I just clicked right down there in the message chat GPT. I attached the outline, and then I typed in the prompt: use the following outline or the attached outline to create a marketing email promoting AI and the PGA member, the educational webinar for the Kentucky PGA. And so then as we scroll down a little bit farther, and forgive me, I'm in the wrong spot here, but as we scroll down a little bit farther, you'll see that it gave me a version. And I read through it, and I said, okay, well, that's pretty incredible. Let me give you a little bit more detail. And then it says, okay, well, here's your revised marketing email. And, you know, by providing just a few prompts, something that probably would have taken me 45 minutes to an hour, maybe was 15 minutes maximum. And then I just simply copied this, pasted it, and hit send, and sent it over to Connie, and she was able to share it for us to market today's program. So there's your super basic golf pro using AI. How'd I do, Kevin?
To be honest, that's actually really similar to what most people use it for. And it's the easiest way to think of it is just it's simpler than starting from a blank page.
Love it.
And you also did, in that example, you did what I think is really important, is that you gave it extra context. So the more that you can nudge it in the right direction, the better it's going to succeed. So maybe back to your question about how is it different from Google. When we tend to look for something on the internet, we go to Google and we we type what we're looking for, and if it doesn't come back with the right result, we just assume it's not on the internet, right? You kind of you trust Google to get exactly right for what you type in. With these types of tools, you kind of have to mentally, you have to be on its side. So what I mean by that is your goal has to be to help it succeed, because when it succeeds and writes the thing that you want, then you have succeeded. And part of helping it succeed means you got to tell it context. Like you mentioned Kentucky PGA, you mentioned the agenda for today. So putting all these things in as what we call context helps to make it better and stronger, and way increases the likelihood that you're going to get the result out that you wanted. So you do get out what you put in terms of effort. So I don't know how many of you are familiar using Google Meet. Maybe you guys do this quite frequently. But I was hoping to get a little bit of feedback from folks just in terms of how familiar you are. And so in Google Meet, if you're at a computer or a phone, at the bottom of the screen, there's a little smiley face button. Actually, I'm not sure where it is on the phone, but on the computer, it's at the little smiley face at the bottom. And if you pop that open, it'll give you a list of half a dozen or so emojis. Hopefully you can pop that open and take a look. I want to ask you a question. We're going to do a little emoji survey here. There we go. Kelly's just nailed it. Fantastic. So my question is, if you look at that list of emojis, there's a thumbs up and a thumbs down at opposite ends of the spectrum there. Sort of show of thumbs up or thumbs down. How many of you have actually used ChatGPT in the last 6 months? All right, this is great and helpful. Kelly, you can't vote twice. Knock it off. So I think maybe on the fly here, we should show a little bit more of the things that are possible, just because so few people have been exposed to it.
Do you want me to drive, Kevin, or would you like to show on the fly?
I can run it.
Okay.
By the way, and as Kelly mentioned, please do like come off of mute, say hi, ask questions, interrupt. It's this can be sort of easy. So I guess first thing first, and I will paste this into the chat so that you guys all have access to these links. In Google Meet, there is this chat window. You'll find these links all over here. If you want to pop that open, just be aware that at the end of the call, you're not going to be able to get these back. So you might want to just go in, copy them now, and save them off for later. So as Kelly pointed out, we are starting at ChatGPT. There are actually a lot of other things that do similar stuff. This is just the most popular one. It's the one that some people can pronounce. A lot of people use. So Kelly gave an example of like building out a meeting agenda, and the point I wanted to make earlier is that like if you just say like, I'll make this a little bit bigger. If you just give it kind of no context for what you want, it's going to pretty much struggle, right? Sometimes it'll ask you questions, but if you say like, it doesn't care about spelling, fortunately. So the important thing here is that I gave it information about my audience, what the topic was about. Once you do that, then it will become more successful. It will start to help out and fill in these different types of things. So by mentioning that it was related to the Kentucky PGA, it automatically starts to realize that like PGA has to do with sports, and specifically PGA has to do with golf. All of this comes with that tiny little bit of context that I gave it. So anytime you interact with this, just a little bit of context will help it out a lot. So other than setting up meeting agendas, you can, let's just say, yeah, what's the question? Ben.
Sorry, trying to figure out how to get this thing to work. But so I know plagiarism is a big deal. And so I know, Kelly, I think you mentioned just copy and pasting. So AI doesn't care about that, I guess. If you just copy and paste.
Do you mean copy and paste its results, or do you mean that it will copy and paste?
Like if I just copy and paste its results, send it in an email, AI doesn't care if I, don't change any words, I guess.
Right. So the way that all of these services are licensed, which is really what you're asking, is a licensing question. So anything that's created here, you are free to use for commercial purposes or non-commercial purposes. And that's largely the point of it, is to get people to do that. I will put on my corporate hat for a second and say, like, when like we have a AI usage policy at PGA in terms of like what are our staff members allowed to do and not allowed to do. And what we are allowed to do is take information, put it in here, and work with it to get answers back. What our employees are not allowed to do is just take the answer from like ChatGPT and use it publicly. So for example, I can like I don't know. Sorry, I'm not giving anything very specific here, but like, obviously we make a lot of press releases, and this is something that we could do. But if one of our employees were to take this and just like post it without reading it or editing it or critiquing it, that person would probably get fired. So you have to have a human in the loop to take a look at these things. Now, it's much better than starting from a blank page, but you have to have people in the loop to look at it. One of the things that we've worked hard is to sort of destigmatize the usage of it for our own employees, just because there's so much benefit and acceleration that we get from using it, that we want to make sure people don't have a stigma around. Well, is this cheating, or is it okay to let AI help out? And fortunately, we're a company that doesn't have any state secrets, so it's like, by all means, yes, please, like, use this. Just make you faster, just make you better. But you can't just take what it gives you and not critique it. Does that make sense?
Yes. And I think that's probably what I would probably do, but was just curious as far as, I guess, to your point, maybe it's a licensing question, but if that was something that AI would flag it or in some way and say, because I've even seen on social media, there's posts that say created with AI. So I didn't know if you had to tag it a certain way or just do things a certain way.
You have to look at the terms of service for the different things. I actually don't recall exactly what ChatGPT's terms are for like attribution. The reality is the vast majority of people don't. I think it's more along the lines of like less about acknowledging the source and more about acknowledging that you're interacting with a computer rather than a person. There's been a lot of push to try to disclose that kind of thing. But if you go back to the point of, here's this thing, it was authored by Kevin Scott, and if that's my claim, then I actually need to be the one who's certifying, like, yes, this is what I believe, this is what I'm trying to express, even if a computer helped me write it. Same thing is true if you from in a newspaper, right? Like you have to, there's some accountability there.
And Ben and Kevin, I might chime in there too and say an interesting use for me recently was a member who he had a handful of complaints about food and beverage. Imagine that, a few things he didn't like that we were doing, and in order to feel like I responded to every single item that he mentioned, I copied his email, I plugged it into ChatGPT, and said, "Hey, write a response for me that, it would remove the emotional response that I might provide and let the computer do it." As soon as it spit out a response, I didn't just copy and press send. I then reread it and said, well, there were a couple little things here and there that weren't quite right or weren't quite applicable to this scenario. So that's where the human involvement, the human touch got involved for me, Ben. And I felt like this is actually what I wrote at that point rather than just what AI did, because had I just sent it, it would have been close, but it would have missed the mark. I felt once I put my touch on it, it then became applicable to our situation. And frankly, it prompted a really thoughtful response from the member, and we were able to come to a really positive resolution, I think, on the scenario that was presented. So that's how I put the human touch in when I handle these scenarios and utilization of ChatGPT.
Yeah, it's a great point, Kelly.
Well, that's really interesting that you can do that. So I think that answers it. So I'd say thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for asking the question. Please, everybody else chime in as well. We've carved out 90 minutes so that we could truly be interactive.
I was going to just like throw a few other examples in here. There's things that you might find useful. So again, I'm going to give it a little bit of context down here. This is, just tell it who I am and this kind of things. Otherwise it wouldn't know. And let's say, by the way, I'm obviously making this up. I'm not a head professional. I'm a nerd. But if we said, so again, I'm allowed to make terrible punctuation and misspellings and abbreviations, and it just figures out exactly what I'm trying to do, which is nice. And and it'll come back and it'll give me, by the way, you would know if this is a good JD. I actually wouldn't. But in general, it'll give some structure and some things that you can react to, cut some things out, add some stuff in, whatever you want. And at this point, again, you can just copy this, make it your own, do whatever you want. So for example, if you don't use 4Ts, then that should come out. So this is an example where it kind of made that up. Like it completely made it up. I didn't tell it that. And I'm pretty sure it doesn't know if Travis Point uses 4Ts. So you do have to watch for these kinds of things. It's actually a really good example. Something else you could do.
Let me just interject real quick too, Kevin. This was something that when I first started using it, I didn't realize when it says message chat GPT down there, maybe I'm just dense, but it's truly asking you at this point to say, hey, talk to me and tell me what you think about what I am speaking about artificial intelligence as if it's a person, what I just created for you, and then I'll adjust it for you. So at this point, maybe you say, hey, we don't use 4Ts, but we use whatever else is out there in its place. And go to our website to offer more information about our facility at Travis Point. And it'll say, okay, gladly. And then boom, it's like it runs off to the web and then comes back in 8 seconds with more information.
Yep. That's exactly right. So you can just request like follow-ups and tweaks to this whole thing. So you could say add and it will do the whole thing again for you. That's not a significant tweak. We could give it something else like you can ask it to cut it way back. But again, here you can see it added the URL there into this version. If it's really long, you can tell it to make it short. I've got a shorter version. You could say use that same information to make a LinkedIn post. Give you some suggested text here if you wanted to do that kind of thing. If you wanted to translate it to Spanish, you could just ask it to do that, and you'll get whatever you're asking for translated into Spanish. So you can use it as your collaboration partner, really to update and adjust anything that you want to here.
Let me interject another question. I can't help myself, but so there's a free version and then there's the pay for play version. Maybe take a little bit deeper dive. Folks that just go to chatgpt.com, what are they going to find versus what comes with the upgraded options? Yeah,
there's a little, actually there's a description of it over here, I think. So I'll flip over to my other account that does not have a ChatGPT explanation or a subscription. So the difference is basically you get better language models if you pay the $20. So you get better writing, better logic, smarter analysis, all those kinds of things. You get more usage out of it, and you get to be able to generate images with it. You can upload files that it'll be able to make sense of. So for example, you can upload a spreadsheet or a PDF, and it will understand what's in those things and start to work with them. These are the big differences. So for the $20, you get more of the better stuff and some extra capabilities.
Well worth the $20 a month, would you say?
Oh my God, I would pay double that. I mean, we like inside of PGA, we actually have kind of a PGA specific version of this, but it works in a similar way. And without exaggerating, I use it 10 times in a day. I mean, just absolutely constantly. And it can be really simple stuff. So like, here's an example. I'll pick on Kelly for a second. And if I just like copy this. And again, like copy paste is your friend. So if I come in here and say, I'll paste that in, scroll to the bottom, and then I'm going to hit a couple of new lines and just sort of like make a separator. It doesn't have to be equal signs, it can, whatever. So I pasted in the context, and if I just said like fix all the then it will actually come back and make an updated version of it. Hopefully it'll be done here soon. This is nice if you wanted to just like paste it in, but what I like to do and then you can basically review what are the things that it did. So like did a little bit of punctuation, it like took out some hyphens and changed a couple of things here. So you can, again, you can ask it for stuff like that. So I use this kind of thing a lot because I'm only okay at writing. And it might be the case that I actually wanted to write out the word. You know, if I wanted to say it this way, maybe that's our convention, then I would ignore it. And I would say like, no, it is the way that I want, but at least this helps me think through problems. It also helps me if I'm writing a business plan or a new business model change or proposal or a new project, I will paste in like all of my thoughts and notes in here and say like, poke holes in this. Tell me everything that like, when I present this to legal, what are they going to complain about? When I try to compete with so-and-so in this new business, what are the problems I'm going to have? Like, help me anticipate this stuff. It's really, really a very good sparring partner. I heard another hand go up.
It was Danny Barron. Let's hear from Danny.
Yeah, Kevin, thank you very much for this. Kelly, thanks. This is great. Kevin, have you seen anything merchandise-wise? You know, a lot of PGA professionals running retail pro shops and planning an open-to-buy program or merchandise mix or plugging in, you know, annual sales and trying to get more predictive and proactive on a merchandise plan that could help PGA professionals. And have you seen anything around that in ChatGPT?
So I follow a lot of news and updates for all these things, and I have not seen a ton around that. I think what you'd be able to do today is relatively pedestrian. So you could paste in information and data that you have, like again, give it lots of good context, and it would be able to do a lot of what you might be able to do in terms of like thinking it through. But this type of model isn't especially good at seeing things that you wouldn't be able to see. And so that's where I'm still looking for a little bit more innovation to come. For example, like if you as a human could look at the data and like, you know, maybe with enough time staring at it, you could figure out if there's some trend or some opportunity, it would probably be able to do the same kind of thing. But if there's something that's truly buried that like no human could ever figure out, I don't think it would do very well with that. That said, a lot of the things that we have to do does involve stuff that, yes, okay, I as a person could do it, I just don't want to, or it's a lot of work, or it's laborious, whatever. So since this stuff basically works instantly, you might as well at least look at its suggestions. You can then decide like, yeah, okay, it got this right, it got that wrong, or I don't want to do it the way that it's suggesting. But you can get assistance from it that way.
Got it. Thank you.
There's, I'm just kind of trying to think of other things that might be relevant here, but like, so let's say, so some folks wrestle with this question, kind of like, you know, what's the business case for actually doing, you know, adding simulator golf into a facility. And so like right out of the gate, it's going to start to think about things like it doesn't just give you an answer. It kind of gives you stuff to think about. And depending if you write business proposals or kind of like how you construct them, this like is stuff that you can start to use. And it also might, by the way, like just get stuff wrong. I have no idea if $50,000 is actually correct here. So if I were using this, I would say, well, actually, I'm looking at this particular type of solution, and here's the actual cost for it. Or here's some of the estimates that I've gotten. If you got estimates like PDFs, you can just paste them in here, and it'll start to use that kind of thing. So, but you could also ask it to do like, well, and I don't know if it knows this, but Travis Point Country Club is in Michigan. And it'll then be able to pull in a number of different things. And it's not that you couldn't come up with this, it's just that you would have to go off and research it. So again, you can ask it more questions and refine it and use other ways to pull this information together.
Realistically, we just did 2 hours worth of planning with 30 seconds of typing. Is that probably pretty accurate?
Well, I don't know. You'd have to read this stuff to see if it's right, but
well, to create that much content, though, it takes time. And if you're like me and you can only be creative for like 45 minutes a day, and it's got to be between 2:15 and 3:30, and you get interrupted a lot during that time, well, here's the answer, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I'll use a crappy example. I don't imagine that you guys would ever like really do this, but just as something that you could. And if I say like, make it 10 question, multiple choice. Actually, I'm going to stop it. I'll go back and I want to change something here. So this is just sort of another example of like writing or things that you could do you probably would never want to go and create this yourself, right? And again, golf cart management isn't necessarily the best topic here, but it just goes to show that you can do some things and have it come up with stuff that could assist you, and again, like help to do things that you probably wouldn't have otherwise put time to, because who's ever going to create this? Did another hand go up? I didn't quite hear. I don't think so.
No, that might have just been my computer. Oh, nope. Now we got a hand.
Ding.
Kevin Main.
Hey, Kevin. It's Kevin Main. I'm with Kentucky State Parks. Can you move into Canva.com? And a lot of us are producing a lot of different flyers and stuff like that for events and things like that. I've dabbled around with Canva a little bit, and it's pretty instrumental in some of the things that we do with the Parks Department, and I think it would be very helpful to show the group in this setting here. For sure. I was actually just going to ask Kelly if that's a good place to segue.
Yeah, let me do one last thing here before you move to video and to Canva, because I want to hear both. So a human is using GPT for the first time. They've got all this information that we just handled today. Now what? When I close the browser, is it gone? How do I save it? What do you recommend is our next step here?
Yeah, it's gone. Well, I mean, it'll save it in the history, so you could just open up the website again, and it's like gonna save it off here on the sides. So like here's some of the different things that we've done. I almost always will just take the stuff, select it, copy, paste, and put it into a Word document or Google Doc or something like that. And maybe here's the segue for you. Um, uh, so all that ChatGPT is going to do is create text for you, and blah blah blah. It's fine. Like might be a good start, but it is just text, and it's not exciting. So what you could very easily do is like grab all this stuff, copy it out of here, and then cut over to Canva. I'm guessing more of you probably have used Canva than some of the other things, and it's fantastic. They have released this thing called Magic, and at the risk of boring you slightly, the best way to show what it does, they actually have this really good kind of explainer video. It's not very long, but let me just like spin this up here. It might be choppy as it's coming over, but hopefully it's coming through clear enough that you can get the gist of what it's doing. So it's able to create all these different layouts and designs, just sort of however you want. It's creating those different mobile layouts. Just click, 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 and it does kind of the design work for you. You don't need to really think too much about creating it. Just go with what you like, what things that look good. And what it's also good at here is that it'll swap out text for you. Here's an example again of writing JD.
Yeah, for me, Kevin, it's just stuck on the Magic Studio intro 4 seconds in.
I'm sorry, that's totally useless then.
There we go. That
well,
different.
Then never mind. You have to take my word for it, I guess. But the link is in there, and it's worth exploring. There's a lot of different stuff that you can do here. But again, it'll help you to make presentations or flyers, some video editing. We can talk more about that in a second. But it just takes a lot of the labor. Canva already took a lot of the labor out of designing stuff. But it's just, it's gone to another level with some of the AI tools that they have here. It's really good. And I think Canva actually includes, like, I don't think they charge extra for their AI stuff. I think they want to make that part of the new thing.
So let's see the mother-son event applied in Canva then.
I actually don't know exactly how to do that, so that would just take me a few minutes to figure it out on the fly. Okay. But yeah, I would start with like make a flyer and design a thing, and yeah. Sorry, I don't ever use this one, but
gotcha.
It'll pull that stuff into the flyer there.
So that's one that we should all be looking at then and considering in future.
Yeah, well, the reality is that there's a bunch of tools out there and a bunch of companies that want to make money off of them, right? So those companies are all integrating more AI stuff into their products, and for you and me, that's a win, because we just get to sit back and use it and enjoy it, make our lives a little bit easier. But part of that competition means that let's go back to our emojis for a second. If you can vote on this question here, how many of you use HubSpot or Salesforce or some kind of CRM on any regular basis? Thumbs up or down? Okay, sort of mixed. So basically a way to keep track of leads and customers and things like that. Those tools are becoming very AI infused, which is great. So the tools that we use, Gmail, your iPhone, all of these things are having more and more AI in them. Canva as an example. So all the tools that you might have used previously are going to get smarter because they're going to put AI in, which is different than I as a person need to go to ChatGPT and ask a question. You're going to find AI in a lot of the products that you're already using.
Of the others that you shared with us over here, well, I say over here in the original chat, is there another one that you'd like to take a deeper dive into or suggest that we be using maybe in a marketing space or images and video?
Yeah. Let me add this other example. I'll pick on Rocky because maybe none of you know him. So he's got a whole bunch of videos on YouTube. They're kind of what you would expect. Like it's a oops. I'll turn this off here in the audio. Oh, I'm presenting to myself. Let me stop that. All right, so here's Rocky in his sim, and he's like giving some basic instruction. Doesn't have much of a budget for producing these videos, but does kind of a single camera shoot kind of thing. There are tools like where is it? Opus, and what you can do is you can come into Opus. This is opus.pro, and you can basically give it that YouTube link. So just link back to this YouTube clip up here, and it will then create all kinds of different versions of your content. It'll like chop it up. It'll give it different dimensions, things that you can post into Instagram or TikTok or whatever you want. Oops. I don't have a way to turn off the audio. But you can see it's adding captions here. You can tell it what kind of captions you want, different formats. You can tell it what like areas of the video to focus on. Here it just cut out like a 40-second clip from what is otherwise I don't know, 6 minutes. And so basically you paste in the YouTube, tell it to go, and it makes all these different clips for you. So and then on the left it's kind of scoring, you know, is this clip going to be, if you post it on Instagram, sort of like how's it going to do? Like is it catchy? And I don't know, it made like 8 of these different videos kind of chopped up in different ways. And again, each one of them focuses on a different part of the message. Each one of them has captions and all stuff to go along with it. So it's just an easy way to, like, if you only create content in one way. So for example, like if you've only got horizontal, it'll cut it up and make it into lots of other ways. Just video editing is getting a lot easier because computers are going to do the work for us. Does that make sense?
I love it. I was doing the Greenbrier Minute, and the Greenbrier Minute took 3, 4, 5 hours to make it halfway decent to where I felt like I could present it. And I'm going to be on Opus here as soon as we're done today. I love the way this looks.
Yeah, that's a long minute.
It's a long minute. That's right. That's exactly right.
Where were we on some of these other things? So we talked about Canva. The last 3 I'll talk about are more images related. So there are quite a lot of these, and I won't go into the details of it, but there's quite a lot, and they're moving very, very quickly to get better and better. So a lot of the tools are able to do things like generate an image for you. This one is able to basically take a person, and you give it a picture of a person, and you give it the picture of some like apparel, and then it will like put the shirt on the person.
Seems applicable to the golf shop merchandising world, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's neat. And you've got things where, again, if you're just trying to create graphics and imagery, being able to convert from this one on the left here over to this one, that's novel. That saves you. You don't ever have to get good at Photoshop anymore. And specifically, Adobe has product called Firefly, and it does a lot of these different kinds of things. And even they're getting into, actually just yesterday, they announced this one, being able to do stuff with video, and it will actually help to cut and fade and do all the editing, and just like take all that labor away from us, which I'm super excited about. One thing I will warn you about, so let's be a good example of this. I tend to use Midjourney a lot for creating these things. Let's say it's so if I ask it to work on this, it'll give me, I think, 4 different examples of this. But all of these models, it's pretty fast. Give me 4 different pictures. All of these models are notoriously bad at making pictures of golf.
Okay.
These are relatively okay, but I mean, like here, someone's got a club sticking out of their head. This golf club is upside down. Maybe that's a head cover. I don't even know. So the unfortunate thing for people in the golf world is that, like, it's terrible at making images of golf, and that's true across every single every image generation thing that's out there. That said, oh, there's another one. Ideogram is actually really good. Well, not really good. It's better than the others at inserting text. So let's say, did I get that right? IAR?
IER?
Golf and Country Club?
Yes.
So historically, they haven't been very good with words. So we're just getting to the point where these image generators are getting better at words. Where I have not tested this. I have no idea what it's actually going to come out at. My guess is half of these are going to be wonky. Well, actually, they're not that bad.
Yeah. Interesting.
So you could use things like this to, if you wanted to describe some new ideas that you have, or you know, for example, if you change this from wood, you could say, no, do it with like steel or something. So there's a lot of stuff coming. What's still a little bit on the horizon is being able to say, like, here is a picture of Greenbrier. Now, please add this particular thing into it. There are some that are okay at that, but it's still in the process of getting better. Again, like I said, this video won't age well. So if you go back and read this in a year, you'll laugh at that part because that'll be very possible.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And that was the next question coming was, can you show a proposed area with an addition of XYZ item? So you answered that.
Yeah, and you can. Here. I'm sorry. Some of the tools that are listed in there, yes, you can. So that tends to be called generative fill. And I don't know where it is in this particular one, but Prey is another one that was listed in that list. So it has upscale, enhance, compose. I don't use these things every day. I'm not sure where it is, but anyhow, yes, you basically say, like, here's the thing I want to replace, and it'll knock that out for you.
So going back, just kind of looking holistically back to Ben's question at the beginning, and it's my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that the more information we give it, the more it learns about us and our industry, and the more it will have to pull from the more data or the more content, I guess is the better word, it will have to pull from for future generation of content. Is that kind of accurate?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then what are the risks involved? I mean, Danny asked the question, I want an open to buy plan. Would love to build that in the future. Are you, you're sharing this, right? It's going out to the whole world to see. If you put financials, for example, on here, what's the risk? Terrible idea. I'm not promoting it right now. Please let me be clear, but I'm using it as an example.
There's a bit of a sliding scale there. Let me tell you in the least nerdy way I can come up with, like how this stuff actually works. So from a terms and conditions standpoint, if you use the free version of ChatGPT, then they are allowed to train on your data. So that means that, remember that they're constantly trying to make it better and better. So if you type something in and it gives you a response, and then you click on the little thumbs down thing saying that was a bad answer, it will take that feedback and over the long term incorporate it into future versions of their model as like how to give better responses. That's an easy one. It's not very thorny because it's just a thumbs up or a thumbs down, but nobody's because they have that right to train the future models based on the data that you give them. Technically, it's more than just thumbs up and thumbs down. So technically, they are allowed to train on the information that you entered in. Everything that I've seen seems very unlikely that that's actually going to add up or matter to many things. Just in terms of, I'm sorry, it'll make their models better. But like if you say, hey, my forecast or my actuals for this quarter were this dollar amount, that's practically speaking the way it works. Like it's not going to show up the next time somebody does a search. Like you don't have a good risk of like direct leakage for that kind of thing. But if we continue down the spectrum and get more and more extreme, like don't put social security numbers into it. Don't put credit cards into it.
Right.
Because those kinds of things, even if they don't show up, like if you say like, here's my profitability for this quarter, like that's sensitive in the context of like your facility or that kind of thing. But a social security number or a credit card number, like it doesn't need to have any extra context. Like if that just gets picked up and remembered in the future version of the model, that's just bad. Like even just that one thing by itself. So wouldn't put those kinds of things in there. And we have those same rules internally as well. Like you don't put private information. So that's all the free version. On the paid version for $20 a month, I'm 80% certain that they have you basically, when you pay, they agree that they will not train on your data. So different companies, different people will have different feelings about how much they trust that and what they want to use. But even though we use the paid version internally, we still don't allow people to put like credit card numbers or social security numbers in.
Sure.
Like that would just be dumb. Even if it's, even if we're protected by the terms, why would you do that?
Right. Why risk it? Yeah, absolutely. So then, and please chime in. We've kind of hit an hour here, and so the last 30 minutes is really available to make whatever you as the PGA member on the call want it to be. But what's coming next? I mean, you've kind of touched on that several times, but in our initial conversation, where do you see it going, PGA related, not just in our daily lives, but as the golf professional views it?
There's a few different dimensions to this. I think that the software that we use, the tee sheets that you use, Golf Genius, I mean, like all the things, Club Essential, whatever you're using, I would really encourage you to lean hard on all of those vendors to say, hey, look, your tools that we pay good money for need to continue to get better and better and better. And that could mean better in terms of, make it easier to organize an event. It could be easier in terms of like how to market or promote an event, smarter about inventory management. So I would really encourage you, collectively, PGA members have a tremendous voice. So not all companies are innovating at the rate of like HubSpot. So some of the smaller companies that many of us deal with aren't doing that. So please push on them to be that's where a lot of the innovation is going to come into your daily jobs. The other dimensions of it are kind of in the category of like, will it take my job? And I said that I would avoid the hype and not go too much into that, but here's the closest I'll get into it and maybe give you just a way to think about it. Imagine there's some spectrum of jobs that we all do. And at one end of the spectrum is somebody whose job is to copy data from one place and paste it into another place. And at the other end of the spectrum is somebody who works in hospitality, and the job is to be like personable and interact with human beings and make them happy. If you think about that spectrum, and like what are the components, what are the tasks in either one of those jobs that could be done by a computer, things like copying, pasting data from one place to another, pretty high percentage of the tasks in that job can be done by a computer, and I guarantee they will be. If you think about something in the hospitality, and like golf falls in this category in a lot of cases, so the percentage of tasks in your roles, I think, will be relatively small compared to a lot of others, and I think that the effects that PGA members are going to feel is more going to be like writing job descriptions. Like, well, nobody became a PGA professional because they wanted to write job descriptions. And so I think that the technology will help to take a lot of the less exciting parts of the job away and make those happen, you know, rather than an hour, it'll happen in 10 minutes. And that's 50 minutes you can spend with your customers doing what you're meant to do. And thinking about the future of the business, thinking about the experiences that you're creating and the delight that people have when they engage with your brand. That's my kind of optimistic view of, I think in general, you know, people are still going to play golf generally the same way they play it today for a long time. So I don't think it's going to disrupt the sport in that way. And I think that the way that facilities and PGA professionals interact, I think you're relatively well positioned. That there lots of other jobs are going to get taken first before it comes for golf professionals. Ben, I see your hand up.
Yes. So kind of along those lines, you know, for example, I'm someone who would maybe type out an email for the facility, and I would say that's a little different than just copying and pasting data. So that's what I was looking at. To me, this is something that, you know, really, you know, that was a skill set that I would say, even from interacting with people, I would be proud of or took pride in. Ability to write emails, but now I guess it's going to be more ability to use AI. But I guess going forward in the future, to your point, like, what are some things AI can't do? Like you talked about the sport, you know, like, do you see, even going forward, what are things that AI maybe can't do? So that would be something that we could really, you know, try to excel at. Let's say.
It is never going to reach out and warmly shake someone's hand, to state the obvious. And I think that there's a lot of depth into that in the human connection. And you're going to see a lot of stuff that has had humans in it that's going to be, it'll be normal that has less human interaction. So for example, when you go to the drive-through, like, you're probably going to start talking to computers more when you place an order than you will. And you've already seen it today. I mean, through COVID, we order off of our phones and kiosks and stuff like that. So I think some of those human interactions are going to decrease, and it'll become sort of normal. In the not too distant future, you're going to be able to call into an airline and the phone system's actually going to be able to understand your answers.
Yeah. Well, you know, it is just interesting because, you know, probably taking a quote, you know, way out of context, but I did hear Elon say that he thought that AI had gone too far, you know, in his eyes, he feels like it's at a point where it's gone too far to what it can do. So to me, there is a concern with it as far as, you know, if there's, you know, 300 million people out there, you know, and just what it can and can't do. And so to me, I know a lot of the comments I hear from people that they love golf because it's something that you can get outside and do. So I mean, that's something that I guess, you know, that it won't be able to do for you. But just curious. I mean, I know when I saw it create that, you know, bit about the simulators, I mean, that was pretty impressive, I guess. You know, I mean, it was something that like, whoa, like, I mean, that to me looked pretty good. So I guess that was to me kind of concerning in a way, because I would say, I don't know, it was a skill set, I guess, you know, like to me, you know, typing a professional email.
Yeah.
But now you can have somebody on their first day, you know, you could be I don't know, you could just be able to type in, like, you know, maybe Kelly said in 30 seconds, you know, entry-level assistant could create a you know, really good looking job description. Yeah. So
yeah, I think it also it allows you to focus on purpose and your goals. So as an example, if you think about how art gets made, it's less about welding the steel or putting the oil onto canvas. It's about like, did the end result convey the emotion, and did it create the tension, or did it evoke the things that the artist wanted it to evoke? It happened because the artist actually put oil on canvas, but the end result is really the art. And I think if you think about this type of work in that same way, it doesn't actually matter if I'm a good speller or a bad speller, or if I'm compelling with words. Like, I know what I want to communicate, and things like this allow you to, you know, draft 3 different versions of something and say like, yeah, I don't like the first one, but the second one's really good. Or, you know, the thing about the third, that I like the first part, but not the last part. And you can pull these things together. So it kind of means we're constructing things based on what we want to accomplish, what we want to convey. We become more critics than the mechanics of creating. And it's just, it's a different way to approach it. So there's a quote that's gotten repurposed many, many times, and I think it's quite apt, is something along the lines of, you're probably not going to be replaced by AI, but you're at risk of being replaced by somebody who uses AI.
There you go.
And this is why I think it's important for all of us to just have our eyes open to recognize, like what you pointed out, Ben, you know, somebody could, you know, new kid walks in off the street, all of a sudden they're as good at writing things as you. Well, gosh, what does that mean?
right. But at the same time, as someone, you know, who's an assistant, you know, wants to be a head pro someday, that looks pretty cool to be able to, right, not start with a blank sheet, you know, be able to get some of those things. And at the same time, I look at it like, well, you know, that's something that I do, is, let's say, type emails. And so, but to your point, I would maybe rather be doing something else at times. So,
yeah, your customers don't care at all how long it took you to type the email.
That's right. I would summarize it too in saying that it's an enhancement to your skill set. If you don't have the skill set, then you're going to be in trouble. But if you don't have the enhancement, you're going to waste a lot of time. Ben, I went into this and I was like, oh my gosh, I always considered myself to be a strong writer. Okay, that was one thing I could do. I can't add, but I can write. Okay, so I could create those emails. I could create those club communications. And I'm like, so why do I need Chat GPT? Well, I need it so I can do it faster, so I can create the next one. I need it so I can do it quicker and more efficiently, so that I don't waste nearly as much time proofreading my work from my fat finger typing. And I think that is where it becomes an enhancement and not a replacement of a skill set. And then to really zero in on what I think you're saying, Kevin, is that sure, the simulator communication, fantastic at the surface. But if you don't know a little bit about that and know a little bit about that product and how it works, you'll read that. And if you publish what it gave you, you'll miss the mark. So you still have to have that human expertise to be able to hit the bullseye. Otherwise, you might just hit the board, whereas before you didn't even know where the board was. Now you're going to be more on target because you've got the expert using the enhancement.
Yeah.
Nice.
I mean,
That's a good point about just the speed of it, right?
Yeah, it'll be picking the range for us, right, Kevin?
Let's talk about that. So down this path of kind of like what's hype and what's the future. I'm looking out the window right now at our range, and we have a robotic range picker roaming around PGA Frisco. We've got another one from a different vendor in Port St. Lucie. If I'm honest, they're not that great, but they're not going to get worse. And over time, and nobody knows how, what the timeline really is. But every January at the merchandise show, we're going to see more increasingly impactful and effective devices that can do things that people don't need to do anymore. So that's a type of robot. It's not pretty and it doesn't work that well, but like they'll only get better. The other thing is that over time, they will only get less expensive. And my hunch is that nobody's going to feel super threatened by something that picks the range. But just as you think about your staffs, this is going to sound like science fiction, but I have to say it because I do think it's a reality. We've in 2024, we've seen about 24 different what are called humanoid shaped robots. And again, bear with me with the science fiction, but this is going to be more real than you realize. These are robots that can basically walk, and they've got arms. Like they kind of look like a person shape. That's why we call them humanoids. Those will come to market in the next year for sure, certainly inside of 3. And you'll start to see them at price points that are like under $30,000. And if you think about the labor at your clubs, and if you paid once for a machine that it's $30,000 that could basically work 24 hours a day, how would that play into the economics of what you use labor for? It could be all kinds of different things, and it's not important today because it doesn't change a decision that you make today, but it is something to think about, like the structure of the type of physical work that gets done. They can fold shirts, they can unpack boxes, they can sort things, they can drive a mower, they can pick the range, or wash carts, like all these kinds of things that need to get done. There's going to be a different type of labor that comes, and it's going to look like things that you pay up front rather than paying an hourly wage to. All right, that's the end of the science fiction part, but I'm telling you, it's coming.
But I love it. We had that conversation when we first hatched this idea about this presentation, and it's real. It's scary in a way, but in another way, it's showing up on time. It's going to have all of its employment documents in order. It's not going to get sick on, well, I guess it could get sick. It could break down, but it's not going to call in sick too many times. You're eliminating a lot of the human element that comes with the most difficult part of at least my position, which is the humans, and keeping them in line and on task, and all the things that come with it. So, I mean, just the thought of a fairway mower, being able to turn that thing loose and know that the fairways are going to be mowed and there doesn't have to be a human riding on it. And apparently that's right around the corner. Like John Deere is already demoing those units right now. So it's science fiction, but if we fight it, I mean, I'm in my mid 40s. It's going to be here long before retirement for me. So got to embrace it, not fight it, right?
Yeah, and of course, companies like John Deere or Toro, they're going to look to get paid for that.
Sure.
So that might be something to kind of like think about in your replacement cycles, or you know, we have here's a very weird one. Well, we didn't talk about this at all, but like, it turns out AI is not just good at writing job descriptions and business plans. It can actually write software. That applies to me in my world. I'm writing software since I was 5 years old. And so as we write software to build like significant assets for the PGA of America, I need to constantly think about, hey, next quarter, the cost of writing software is going to be less. And the quarter after that, less. It will never be more expensive to write software in human history than right now. And so there are things that I have chosen to not build because I know that the costs are going to come down by 50, 80% in the coming few years. And like, these are just like weird concepts to think about of, you know, is it worth investing in such and such now because there is this like radical like economic change in how work gets done, how you know, the costs of labor and the different ways to approach things. These are good nuggets to have in the back of your head, just to recognize that things are going to become, you know, faster, better, cheaper really quickly.
So as we kind of reach a closing point here, how should PGA members spend their time trying to stay abreast of what is coming with AI? I mean, hopefully today we exposed a dozen people, or at least a half a dozen people, to a tool to make their lives easier. How do we learn about the next tool that's coming, and how do we stay relevant in that space?
I think the good news is that you don't have to be at the exact like front edge of the wave. So first of all, like, don't worry about if you feel like you're late to the party or not. The easiest thing, the most accessible, and I think the most immediately impactful is just ChatGPT. Get in, play with it, use it. That in itself is like plenty of gain for like this year and next year. On the other side of that, you're going to see lots of commercial interest. So for example, when mowers get smarter, those messages will come to you. You'll see it through your vendors. Along the way, I think that you should push on vendors to make that type of progress, like especially in the software world, because software's every month it's easier and less expensive for them to create. So you should insist on it being awesome. But just as an example, like, you know, we at the PGA of America are trying to put together like white papers and position information so that, you know, the questions that you might have in your mind are things that we should be able to answer. The PGA of America ought to be able to say, like, here's what to worry about, here's what not to worry about, here's ways of thinking about things, here's what to do now, here's what you shouldn't worry about. So just by like sitting in this session, you're already making a great investment in your own career, and in your team and in your employers. So I applaud you for like showing up.
Right.
Most people don't.
Yeah, I just would kind of close with this, Kevin. I mean, there's roughly 20 of us on this call, 15 of us on this call, to the 275 or so who couldn't make it. Fine. I certainly hope they watch, but I could totally see us being back here next September 12th going, okay, remember that video we recorded last year? Like, we watched it, and so now here's where we are going forward. It's going to be AI 2.0 for the PGA member, and the folks who missed 1.0 hopefully figured it out, or they can go back and watch, and we're going to talk about what's new and what's next. And I'm all for making my life easier and becoming more efficient in the workplace. I want to spend more time, like, you know, coaching first base, because you called me last night to review, and that's where I was, because maybe I saved that hour or so that I needed to be at the baseball field in some way, utilizing some of this technology on my team, for $20 a month. That seems like a huge win to me.
Before we get off, I actually have a question for the group, and I'd hope to make this a little bit interactive for a minute or two.
Let's do it.
So my request here is, if you could give a message to PGA, like to me, about what we should be doing to help PGA professionals in this area, what would that be? Like, for example, has this been a waste of the last 80 minutes of your life? that would help me understand what to do. If there are things that are specifically that everybody should know, what is that? I know lots of stuff, and I would really love to have your overlay to understand through your eyes what are the things that matter and what are the things that don't, and what should more people know about, or how do I avoid wasting people's time? Chad, you got some thoughts for me?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say give us more. I mean, this has been eye-opening for me to see what's out there, and we've just barely scratched the surface. So, yeah, we always rely on these best practices or stuff like that, but anything you can send us out, you know, in updates or monthly things, anything like that, I think would be really beneficial. Just encourage us as the PGA, KPGA to get out there and use this, because it's coming and we need to be aware of it.
Thank you. That's great. The other thing is that I hope we can get some like economy of scale.
Yeah.
That it wouldn't make any sense for any of you to know as much about this topic as I do, but it's also my career. Like, of course I'm going to be invested in it and I should know about it, but we kind of we can take advantage of that. That, like, I know 100 things that you shouldn't have to worry about. Like, how do we bring you the one that's going to matter? So that's what I'm trying to accomplish here.
And to those of you on the call, not just Chad, please, like, tell us. I mean, Kevin and I had a conversation of maybe he and I need to visit all 41 sections, and maybe the guy that's like, yeah, here's Golf Pro AI for dummies. I'm the dummy. Here's the expert. Let's watch him apply it to me. If that's an idea that you think is useful, but tell us how to make this better. How do we make it better when we go to the Southern Ohio section or the North Florida? Or Steve, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I just piggyback on what Chad said. Obviously, we want more, but Kevin, I would think, you know, we've talked for a long time that the biggest challenge in our industry is time, right? Kelly, you said it. Hey, if this saved me an hour, I can get to the ball field. That's where I'd be focused, and it seems like most of this, that's what it's about, right? Saving us time. So I would just really push that as hard as you can, of things that can just plain and simple save us time and energy. That's the most valuable thing to me right now too, is, hey, you know, what can help me get through this stack of notes and things I got right here quicker.
Yeah.
So
that's great. Yeah, and to that end, actually, it would be helpful for me to have better specific examples. So, like, if I knew the top 10 most commoditized sort of like wastes of your time, then we could put together things that would, you know, if there's a technology solution to things that waste your time, then by all means, we should provide it and you should have it.
Well, that's a good point, because I was about to say too, for a specific example, I'm not sure exactly what AI can do to some point, but if you're saying, hey, I can think of things that maybe waste time or kind of take time, because I was trying to think too, but I'm not sure what AI is capable of. But after seeing this, do have a better idea of that. But I think that's a great point with the saving time. But I would just say too, I'm not sure what AI is capable of. You just said that AI was capable of, you know, like writing code, let's say. You know, I'm not too familiar with that at all, but I had no idea that AI could do that. So I'm not sure what AI can do. But well, I guess to your point of like a specific example, you know.
Another hand up, Aaron Horn.
I think what you said that resonated with me, I think it's always been a point of pride for me to not use AI. Like I am people's AI, you know, like people send me things and say, okay, write this. But I think about, you know, when you talked about people use Canva to make flyers, people use CapCut to make reels, it's the same thing essentially. You know, you're just using it with words. And I think that's tremendously helpful. And it kind of turned the light bulb in my brain to say, I do need to use this, and it will make life a lot easier, rather than being a bit too prideful to say, I don't need this, I can do this on my own. But thank you for that.
Of course.
Absolutely. Yeah, Aaron, I texted Aaron, I said, can I put you on the spot? And she said no, so I'm going to put her on the spot anyway. And she's like, I don't want to use it because it's replacing a skill set I have. And I'm like, that was me. That was me. Like, I'm a good writer. So why not let it write for me and buy me some more time to write more things faster? So I'm trying to learn to embrace it and enhance. Embrace and enhance. Those are my two keywords for how I'm using AI.
Right. It's good to, you know, have a template and then put your own spin on it.
Right. And it allows you to. It sure does.
And I say that's a great point too. That would separate the person walking off the street. You know, if you put something out there about golf simulators, that's, you know, $10,000–$20,000 off. You know, I mean, that's not what you want either. So I would say you still have to know what you're talking about before you hit, you know, send. So I think that's a great point also.
Yeah, in that particular one, if I was doing the exercise, I would have prompted it a little bit different. I would have said, like, you know, create me a business plan, a business model, tell me about like a SWOT analysis or whatever, but leave all the numbers out. Like, I will come back with real numbers to plug in the actual like formulas and stuff. I just want to understand the mechanics of the business, the strategy, like the marketing plan, all these kinds of things. So I would focus it more on that rather than like, you know, tell me if the numbers work out.
Yeah.
Who else? I made the note here for you, Kevin. Top 10 time-consuming job duties, and I might even add to that don't generate revenue or income. Might be.
Well, I would think it was just like, even regardless of what AI can or can't do, if people like me, and I'm not the golfiest, but I mean, like, if I understood those kinds of things that are like really taking you away from your customers and your family, then some percentage of those I could work on, and I could return back to you, and like that's a recipe for success.
I think you need to offer this format nationally, and I'm glad we're on the forefront here in Kentucky, but I don't know why every section wouldn't do this. It's either because they're unaware or scared.
Yeah. By the way, I got to hand it to you, Kelly. You're the only person that has done this so far.
Cool.
So, like, thank you for being a thought leader and, you know, trying to be ahead of it and lead your section as well. It's good stuff.
Well, thanks for leaning in and participating with us today. And I mean that. I mean, when we get a chief from the PGA of America to spend 90 minutes with us, I mean, how valuable is that? And I just can't thank you enough.
Happy to do it. More than happy to do it. One thing I'll remind you, on the right-hand side of the Google Meet is the messages panel. If you haven't copied those links, grab those, or hit me up later, hit up Kelly, whatever. This is a tiny list. In fact, every day I get an email 5 different email newsletters of just the new AI products from that day, and there are typically about 20 of them. Like, so there are tons and tons and tons of these things, and they're all competing to be the best and the cheapest, so it's great. And yeah, grab these because that list is going to go away when you hang up the phone here.
And for anybody who failed to grab them, I've recorded them as well, and I can email them out to anybody who needs them if you didn't copy and paste already, or if you weren't in a format that you could copy and paste. So we have hit 11:30, so this conversation could organically last for hours, I'm sure, but we need to let Kevin get back to what he's doing. Kevin, thank you so much for just kind of muddling through this with us, and AI for Dummies. We are so much more educated than we were when we got up this morning, and I even have some new ways I'm going to use ChatGPT just based on watching you, and I can't wait to dive into some of these other options. So we just can't thank you enough, and appreciate your time with us. So look forward to seeing you again real soon. We'll see you in November at the annual meeting, if not before.
Cool deal. I hope to meet some of you in real life someday, and keep up the great work.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks everyone for being here. Connie, I trust you were able to record. Does anybody need to click any links or anything to get education PDRs or anything like that? I failed to mention that.
I actually took attendance, so we are good.
always ahead. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your Thursday, and we'll see everybody again soon. Thank you again, Kevin.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.